I want to welcome everybody to the April 17th, 2018 Board of Commissioners meeting. Please silence your cell phones, pagers, electronic communication devices, agendas, and agendas are located at the back of the chambers. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we'll do a moment of silence followed by, we'll do the moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Ron, do you want to do it? By Ron Buskerud.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we come to item 4, which is review and approval of the agenda. I'd look for a motion for approval of the agenda plus with the removing item 19. Sorry,
Be my motion.
Holly. Sorry about that, Holly.
Chair, that be my motion.
We have a motion to approve the agenda with removal of 19. Second. Moved by Hadcock, seconded by DeSanto. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Next, we come to the consent agenda. I'll recognize Holly Hennies.
Good morning, Commissioners. Holly Hennies, Commission Office Manager. For public notice, the Board of Commissioners uses a consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine items. The consent agenda is acted upon by one motion and vote of the Board. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a board member or a citizen. Today's consent agenda contains the following items. Approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of April 3rd, 2018. Number 6 is to approve the general fund operating transfer to the E911 fund in the amount of $720,129.48, and to approve the budgeted general fund operating transfer to the emergency management fund in the amount of $156,194. Number 7 is to acknowledge the filing of petitions signed by at least 25% of the eligible voters within the proposed district, and to set an election on the question of the formation of the Woodland Court Road District to be held on May 26, 2018, as submitted by the auditor. Number 8 is approval of the second quarter 2018 state and local agreement with the state of South Dakota, as submitted by Emergency Management. Number 9 is the approval of the purchases from the state contract list for bulk diesel and gas products, as submitted by Highway. Number 10 is the approval of the Scenic Township Number 7 maintenance and snow removal agreement, submitted by Highway. Number 11 is approval of the Adopt a Highway application for a portion of Nemo Road by the South Dakota Fraternal Order of Police Lodge Number 2. And finally, number 12 is to recognize and thank the volunteers for the month of March 2018, as submitted by Human Resources.
Thank you. Thank you, Holly. Is there anybody from the public that would like any item from the consent agenda pulled? Seeing none, any from the board?
Number 12, sir.
Number 12 from Ms. Hadcock, Mr. Farabee.
8 and 10.
8 and 10 by Mr. Farabee. Anybody else?
Chairman,
I'd like item 9.
go ahead. I thought I was going to do that for
Okay.
you.
So we have pulled from the agenda 8, 9, 10, and 12.
Move for approval of the consent agenda, 5, 6, 7, 11.
It's been a motion to approve 5, 6, 7, and 11.
I think it was 10 and 12,
Sec-
wasn't it?
What's
8,
that?
10, and 12.
8, 10, and 12, not 11.
Not 11.
8, 9, 10, and
8, 9, 10, and 12.
Yes.
And it was moved by DeSanto, seconded by Ron Buskerud. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item number 8, Mr. Farabee.
Well, Mr. Chair, as usual, I pull this deal because it involves grant money, and the feds don't have a bunch of free money, even though everybody thinks they do. So I pulled it so I can vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Farabee. Any further discussion? Oh, you wanted to read that, didn't you?
No, sir.
Sorry.
Move approval of number 8.
Second.
Moved by Adcock, seconded by Busker to approve item number 8, which is the second quarter state and local agreement with State of South Dakota EM. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries with 1 no vote for Mr. Farabee. Item number 9. But this item was pulled by me. And so what I'll do is I need to abstain from this because one of the contracts is my employer's. So what I'll do is I'll turn over this item to Mr. DeSanto.
A motion to approve number 9 with 1 abstention.
Motion's been made to approve number 9. Do we have a second?
Yeah.
Seconded by Ron Buskerud. Any discussion? Discussion from the public? All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. DeSanto. Next, we come to item number 10, and this one was pulled by Mr. Farabee also.
I would sure like to see a not-to-exceed amount in this contract with Scenic Township. And I know I've mentioned this before, and any reason we don't have a not-to-exceed amount?
Mr. Tom Wilsey, Highway Director.
Tom Wilsey, Highway Department. The main reason we do not put a not to exceed is we don't know when it's going to snow next winter or how much rain we're going to get this summer so that we can blade the roads. We can make a wild guess, but it would be high. Typically, this is cheaper than, they come by cheaper than what we would be able to do it ourselves.
Mr. Chair, if I might, I'd like to see a number, so if we do have an extraordinary amount of snow or whatever, then you can come back to us for more money. But right now, it's a blank check. Thank you.
Chairman.
Mrs. Hadcock.
Tom, can you tell us the process and how you do snow removal for townships and different areas, how that process works?
We don't remove in townships. This is just on our roads that we pay for. We hire their blade to blade our roads down in the scenic area.
Okay.
That way we don't have to run a blade all the way down there to blade that, a couple roads.
Okay, and that's why you charge by the time, because again, you don't know when it's gonna snow and how many times. Sometimes we
They
have,
give us a rate per hour that
Yes.
they would like more. But this is what we have agreed to on this for the rate per hour.
Mr.
Saying
Chair,
that we give them a blank check, no, I don't think we do, because we have to approve what they do. We have to approve their time
Chairman,
to pay them.
Follow up.
yes, sir. Mark, can you reiterate what Mr. Wilsey's saying? You've been doing this a long time.
I'm just, Mark Schock, Pennington County Highway.
Thank you, sir.
I've got a couple numbers here, but Scenic Township has been doing this for a long time for us. Like Tom said, it's out-of-the-way roads that are a long ways from our Wall Division or New Underwood Division. We do have a motor grader that goes down as far as Scenic, but that motor grader operator's route entails about 55 miles. That's pretty much all he can handle in a day. So the Scenic Township does 32 miles for us in that area.
But Mark, does it fluctuate depending on the years? Am I correct?
Definitely, it depends on Mother Nature, you know, how much snow we get each year. I do have an 8-year average
Okay.
for that we've paid for to Scenic Township. Somewhere here.
Mr. Chair, while he's looking, we pay them.
Just a minute. She has the floor, answering the question, and then I'll go back to the rest of the commissioners. We have a comment, and I'll come back to you for a second comment. Okay, go ahead and follow up.
Okay, the 8-year average that we paid Scenic Township is 13,791. Now, it did go up last year because the contract was raised from $50 an hour, I believe, to $75 an hour for snow removal.
Right.
Okay.
Last year, we paid them $23,850.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You done? Does the rest of the board have any comments? I'll make one comment before I go back to Mr. Farabee. It seems like you negotiated this price of $75. We did this last year. We actually reduced it down, if I remember right,
Yes, we did.
for hourly rate. I just wanted to bring that up. Now I'll go back to Mr. Farabee.
We're paying them, they aren't paying us.
Right.
And we went up to 75, it was 50, we went up to 75, right?
That's correct.
I still like to see a not to exceed number on here. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Motion to approve number 10?
Motion's been made to approve number 10 by Hadcock.
I'll second it.
Seconded for discussion by Buskerud.
Mr. Chair,
Further discussion, Mr. DeSanto.
what would it cost us to do it? You have an estimate?
It basically would cost us another person and equipment to do it, because this is another 20, what'd you say, 23, 30 miles that we would have to do. It would cost us another person and equipment to do it.
What's that cost? 55,000 a year?
It would be, I couldn't give you a number right now off the top of my head, but it would be at least that, with a another motor grader and another person. You configure them at 120 an hour is what we figure our costs.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Buskerud.
I don't think we're arguing about whether we should do it or not. I think we're
Yeah.
arguing whether we should put a cap on it. Now make an amendment to the motion. We cap it at 15,000.
Okay. Mr. Buskerud's asking for a friendly amendment to the motion maker,
I
which
don't know if it's
is,
friendly or not, but it's an amendment.
Chairman, if I could, how about 20,
Hadcock.
25, because they're at 23 this year, remember, and we changed it to 75, so I think the cap should be about 25.
I would like to say that I would like to see it at least 20. Just because it costs us that.
Will you amend your amendment?
I don't care what number it is. I guess 20 is fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with if we exceed an amount to come back and
don't either.
let us know about that.
Right.
I kind of agree with George, so.
On
But
board.
I'll say 20 in
Okay.
my amendment.
motion maker okay with the 20?
Sure.
Seconder with a friendly amendment of 20 with the cap. So the motion on the floor is, as amended, is to approve with a limit of $20,000 cap. And then you come back to us for,
For anything over, I will have to come back to you.
yes.
I understand.
Is everybody clear? Okay? All right. Any further comments from public or board? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same motion. Motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, Tom.
I will get the new agreement signed by them and bring it to you.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Item number 12, Ms. Hadcock.
This is just to thank the Pennington County volunteers and how much this board appreciates people that volunteer in the county. Our fair, I'm on the fair board, and we do a lot of our work with volunteers as well. So we appreciate everybody in this community, which is a lot of people that volunteer for Pennington County. And just wanted to acknowledge that. I think it's pretty awesome.
Thank you, Ms. Hadcock. And I would, does anybody else have a comment? I'd like to make a comment on that also. I'd like to read what's on the agenda. The county commissioners and the rest of, if I can get my glasses to focus right, and the rest of Pennington County staff would like to recognize and thank the following individuals for volunteering their time and their efforts to the previous month. Because of their hard work and dedication, they are able to save the taxpayers of Pennington County money and services that might not have been possible otherwise. And so we want to thank all our volunteers as the commissioners for all the work they do. I always like to break out the numbers because we got quite a few volunteers. We got 46 volunteers at the jail. We have search and rescue, we have 41 volunteers. In the juvenile service center, we have 26. And so they provide great service to our community and for our county and save us tremendous amount of money. And the commission and the staff wholeheartedly appreciate all the hard work that they do. Thank you. We need a motion for,
Move to approve.
moved by DeSanto,
Second.
seconded by Buschrood. Any further discussion from public or the board? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we come to, that's the end of our consent agenda. We come to our regular agenda items. We have item 13, 2017 financial compliance audit from the state of South Dakota of legislative audit. Mr. Alan Schaefer. I pronounced that right?
Yes, good morning. I'm Al Schaefer with the Department of Legislative Audit, South Dakota Department of Legislative Audit. And the purpose of this meeting is to let you guys know that we're here and started the audit for calendar year 2017. And we call it a fiscal and compliance audit. And we also call it a uniform guidance audit because you guys get over $750,000 that has been expended in federal awards. So we have another set of guidelines that we have to go by and issue a report on your compliance with federal regulations and stuff. So that's where we come in with uniform guidance. And that magic number is anything over 750,000, we have to do that audit and stuff then. So that's part of our regular audit that we'll be doing. We have been requested by the auditor's office to help in the preparation of the notes to the financial statements and the schedule of federal expenditures. And basically this is what we call non-audited services, and we'll provide that service and just basically take your guys' records to fill out the forms. And they have designated Cindy to be our go-to person if there's any kind of management type decisions that need to be made in filling out those forms. Because to maintain our independence, we can't just come in and do your guys' records for you and stuff like that. So we just take what you guys have and fill out the forms and go from there. So, and these are just they're easy to do from the records and stuff, so it's not a big deal for doing this stuff. We do this in a lot of counties and stuff that we audit. One of the responsibilities of management, including the board, is to inform us of any known or suspected fraud within the county. And keeping in mind that fraud isn't necessarily just embezzlement or stealing money. It could be falsification of time cards, timesheets, misuse of county property, kickbacks on contracts, things like that. So what anybody's responsibility is, if you know of anything that's going on and there's any investigations going on, you need to let us know so that we can put that into with our audit procedure, so we know what we have to do as far as reporting on fraud and stuff like that too. So I'm up in the auditor's office in the back room up there, and you guys feel free anytime to come up and visit with me if you want to. We're open, that's no problem. So if you guys know anything, just let me know and stuff so that we can go forward from that. Of course, they charge for doing this service. Our billable rate is $67 per billable hour. Now, Bruce will be helping me, and he'll drive down from Lead, but you're not billed directly for any of his travel time. And then while we're here doing the audit, we may be answering questions for other entities or may have a special project that we work on. Anytime we're working on something else, you guys, we keep track of our time, so you only get billed for our time working on the Pennington County audit. So sometimes if somebody sees us on the phone talking with people and stuff, that's probably assistance time, and we don't charge you. We even some of our time, as we're answering questions for the offices and stuff, we'll charge that to assistants too, so you guys don't get billed for that either. So,
Mr. Allen, I have one question
Sure.
for you. When I was reading through this, on part of the contract, you have the date, the year, April 30th, 2018, with an extra zero behind it.
oh really? Okay.
So it's almost like 20,180. So I think That's for the year.
Giving you a little bit of time.
There you go, yeah. Sorry about that.
We need to,
Got that
Those,
also.
those stupid computers don't find those things. Do you guys have any areas of concern or anything that you might want us to look at that might not be in our normal audit? I mean, if you can't think of anything right now, like I said, if you think of something, we'll be up there. I'm sure Bruce isn't here yet. He's finished up with the city elite audit. So as soon as he gets here, we'll probably be here till at least the end of May. So
I'd
we're
like,
doing this audit.
if you could give your contact information, email to Holly or
Okay.
something, so that way if a commissioner has something. they
Sure.
can-
I can do that.
Do we have any questions from the board?
No, but I'll probably be talking to you.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Farabee?
The $750,000 limit gonna caught my attention. How much over $750,000 in federal money does Pennington County get? Roughly.
Mr. Farabee?
I'm thinking it's kind of, is it 2 million? Yeah, because, I mean, just in your PILT money you guys get, I think, is over $1 million. And so that's just one federal program. Then you throw in your emergency management or all the other grants that the sheriff and state's attorney's office gets. I'm thinking we're talking like over $2 million. I'd have to go back and look at the report from last year to see what it is, but there's a schedule of federal funds in last year's audit report that would show total amount that we reported on last year. Yeah, so, but yeah, I'm thinking it's at least, I think, $2 million, so.
Follow up, George?
Yeah, so obviously we add a little bit to the federal debt. Thank you.
That is all I have for now. We will again, after we're done with the audit, we'll come back and meet with you guys again and go over our management letter and any findings and recommendations that we have. But for now, that's all I have, unless you guys have any questions.
Thank you, Alan.
Okay.
I think the motion that we need is to authorize the chair's signature on the engagement letter from the SDDLA for the 2017 audit.
Move for approval of the chair's signature on the 2017 financial audit.
Moved by DeSanto,
Second.
seconded by Hadcock. Any further discussion? Any from the public? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
I'll get a copy of that from Kara or whatever afterwards and stuff, after Julie signs it then too.
Thank
so.
you, Al.
All right, thank you.
Next, we come to items from treasurer, our auditor, sorry.
Julie Pearson, Pennington County Auditor. You have before you the resolution approving a lease purchase agreement with the Motorola Solutions, Inc., and authorizing its execution and execution of related documents. This is a document anytime the board or the county goes into any kind of debt. There are certain legal requirements that we have to go through notifying the public. This is the first one and only one that I'm aware of for the year of 2018. We have a $10 million max on bank qualified, so this will use up $950,000. That's a not to exceed because we have to have this in place and effective before we can enter into that agreement with Motorola for the specific types of equipment that they're going to buy. This is for the backup facility that later on in the agenda, you're getting that agreement with under item number 16. The rate used is 3.44, and that again is not to exceed. It's tied to a specific rate in the contract, the date that we basically award or buy the equipment. And this is an accumulated amount, so there's nothing individual in the 950 that needs to be officially bid, as well as its communication equipment, which is also exempted by law from having to be officially bid. So we need approval of this. The resolution is effective 20 days after the last day of publication. So they can't go into the debt, they can't sign that contract, buying that equipment until after the 20 days after publication.
Motion to approve.
Moved to approve by Ms. Hadcock. Is there a second for discussion?
Second.
Seconded by Buschard for discussion. Any discussion?
What do we,
Mr. Farabee?
what do we anticipate the cost of equipment will be for that backup facility?
It won't exceed 950. I think it's right at a little over 900,000 right now. I believe that's all going through the user board and talked about during budget when we needed the backup facility
Chairman?
offsite.
Do you have a follow-up, George?
No.
Okay. Ms. Hadcock?
Maybe Ted could come up and give us some background so the public know, or Kevin, what's going on and how important this second backup for 911 is for Pennington County and the citizens here.
Morning, Commissioners. Ted Rifflet Jr., Deputy Director of Technology and Budget with the 911 Dispatch Center. Right, we've been before you before, we gave you a presentation on this. Our current backup center is located in the basement of Fire Station 6, and was built many, many years ago, and it's no longer suitable to support our needs if something were to happen to the main facility. So to answer Commissioner Farabee's question, we're working very hard to keep the cost, our annual payment amount exactly the same as we have in our budget today. And so we'll probably have to shave that number down to around 800,000, 790,000 will be the final amount of lease purchase. Our users board will be meeting with them next week to finalize those decisions as to what exactly will go in there. But yeah, this is an excellent cooperation with the South Dakota National Guard. The reason it's taken so long to get this to you is because about 6 months in, they decided the building they had made some space available for. They decided they probably would need that space in the future. So they identified another building on Camp Rapid that actually is a much better facility for us. It's essentially the entire building that we can rent from them at a very reasonable rate. And it used to be the location of the Sentinel Federal Credit Union that was on Camp Rapid, and they've moved out. So there'll be some remodel in there with the Guard paying most of that cost, and then we will rent it from them and set up our backup center in there. And there will also be a small backup emergency operations center in there as well, in case something was to happen to this building.
Thanks, Ted. Do you have a follow-up, Ms.
Yes.
Hadcock?
I'd like to thank Ted and Kevin for their work. And then Colonel.
Colonel Price.
Yes. So I think it's a great alternative. I think it's a safe alternative for people in Pennington County and western South Dakota. So I think all the work you've done on this, Ted, I know you've done a lot. And I've been out there with you
Yes.
on occasion to see where we're going with it. Thank you for all you've done, because I think this is an excellent idea and an excellent choice. Thank
We
you.
appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you,
Is
sir.
there any further comments from the commission?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Farabee?
I'm certainly totally on board with a backup facility for dispatch. I'm just concerned about cost. So we need to keep, you don't need to go fancy.
No,
This is a backup facility.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Remind you about your mic, Mr. Farabee. Thank you. Any further discussion from the board? I'd look for a motion for authorize the chair's signature on the resolution approving the leasing purchase agreement with Motorola Solutions, Inc., and authorize its execution and execution of related documents.
Move to approve, chair signature.
We already
There's
had
already a
a,
motion.
there's already been a motion.
Oh, there was a motion.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
I was first, and I can't remember who was second.
Hadcock made the motion and
Buschard.
Buschard made the second. Sorry about that. So we have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Items from the sheriff. Mr. Tone.
Just write it on the paper.
Morning, Kevin Tone, Pennington County Sheriff. We have a request before you this morning for 2 additional school liaison deputies for the Douglas School District. And this was initiated by the Douglas School District, and then through a series of meetings with them, we agreed on some numbers, which I'll run through in the PowerPoint after a minute here. But the school liaison program's been around a long time, 30-plus years in Rapid City, Pennington County. Obviously, it's evolved over the years, and it's good on many fronts. It's not just about school safety, it's also about bullying, it's about kids reporting drug abuse, it's about kids reporting being sexually abused. I mean, it's just good on many fronts, law enforcement having that relationship with kids in the schools. And for us, an added benefit is those relationships carry over into adulthood. So kids that have good relationships with law enforcement in schools also have good relationships with law enforcement when they become adults. And I know this is out of sync with our budget cycle, and I'll talk about that in terms of some of the dollars and stuff. But what I'd like to do is let you hear from some of the representatives from Douglas, if they'll come up. The superintendent for Douglas School District is here, and one of their board members, who's also a parent, and another parent, and they just want to talk about why they approached us and a little bit about the dynamics of the Douglas School District, the number of buildings, the number of students, those sorts of things. So, go ahead if you want.
Good morning. I'm Alan Kerr, the Superintendent of Schools at Douglas, and I just want to point out three very important things that may be unique to Douglas that most schools don't face. We are experiencing unprecedented growth. When I got here at Douglas 4 years ago, we had about 2,400 students. We currently have about 3,000 students. Last year, we grew 151 students, and we believe that as a conservative number, we'll at least grow by another 50 students next year, but it's not inconceivable that we could grow by another 150. We had half as many building permits as Rapid City did as with about 1/10 the population. So as you can tell, we're experiencing unprecedented growth. And with that comes more needs for law enforcement in the community, the educational community. Secondly, most people, when they talk about law enforcement schools, they only think of one thing, and that's an active shooter. Probably the most important thing that we see our SROs, or school resource officers, do is be proactive, not reactive. If we get to the point where they're being reactive, the carnage is probably already done. We want to prevent things before they happen. That's most important to us. And they do that every single day, the two resource officers that we have. We have a great relationship with the Pennington County Sheriff's Office, and the professionals that we've had in our buildings make a difference in the lives of kids every single day. The third unique thing that we have is we have such a close relationship with the military, and they face many threats that other school districts don't face. For example, some of the students' families have been on ISIS kill lists, and that's pretty scary when your family's address and your kids' names are on kill lists by ISIS. And we need that relationship to grow and continue to keep up with the pace of our increase in student enrollment. I can't tell you the number of times that we've prevented drugs getting in our schools, guns getting in our schools, suicides. These relationships that we're building with these kids, I can't express enough how important it is to our school district. And with our growth, we definitely need more resource officers, and we appreciate the consideration. I know budgets are tight for everybody. Usually I'm on the other side of the table, and you want to make sure that you don't overextend yourself. But my board asked me, can you afford to do this? And my point to them is we cannot afford not to do this, because the safety of our kids has to be our number one priority in our communities. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Tanya Gray, and I'm actually on the Douglas School Board and a parent of a child in sixth
Is that
grade.
Tanya?
Tanya, yes. Sorry. I don't want to repeat exactly what Mr. Kerr said, but I will tell you that the two deputies, that are in our district right now, Deputy Hartland and Deputy Gust, do an amazing job. My daughter in the sixth grade interacts the most with Deputy Hartland, and he is out with the children, talking, making relationships, as well as doing all of the things that Mr. Kerr alluded to, which are drugs, other, unfortunately, sexual contact, things like that happen, that those officers are able to head off before something else develops. I think one of the most important things is that it isn't because those two officers aren't doing everything they can. Those two officers are busy every single day. Our workload, per se, is going up. As Mr. Kerr alluded to, the population is increasing, the number of students in our district is increasing. Therefore, we believe the number of SROs in our district needs to increase as well in order to be in the other two buildings, to work with the students directly, therefore to make a more cohesive environment to where those officers can work together throughout the district to make us safer. Our number one, we have to make our students safe and make them feel safe in that educational environment. Yes, education is first, but they have to feel safe and be safe in order to learn. I think that the importance of adding these two officers is on the top of our list from a school board standpoint because of the safety.
Thank you.
As a parent, what I will say is, of course, it makes me feel safer to add two additional officers. I think that anything we do as a district to improve the safety is a good thing. The other thing I want to make sure that I thank is directly the Pennington County Sheriff's Office for everything they do. I can tell you, I won't turn around, sorry, but Hislop has been at many board meetings, so has Gus and Heartland, and I can tell you they've been nothing but professional. And we appreciate that relationship so much because what we do, we depend on them a lot for. And the safety of our children is certainly of utmost importance. So I thank you. I understand that this does cost dollars, but as Mr. Kerr said, at this point, from our board standpoint as well, we can't afford not to.
Thank you, Dan.
So I thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Dan.
Good morning. I'm James Brown. I'm also a parent of two children in the Douglas High School. I'm also attached to the military base. I was brought out here to the Ellsworth community and the Box Elder community in 2004. I've involved myself in this on a lot of different reasons. I have a background in understanding this. Some of the things that we need to take in place, especially in the active shooter realm. Every 3 seconds in an active shooter scenario, someone dies. Best police force response times and first responders is 3 minutes. That's potentially 60 lives. Having 2 additional officers in those 2 additional buildings is paramount to the safety of these children. Many people, because of recent history, look at things as, well, it's just at high schools. High schools are the target. Have we forgotten Sandy Hook, an elementary school? Very important. Facts. If we look at A&E, the network today, we look at that in their show where they placed adults back into high schools. Look at the changes that have happened in those schools. Do we not think that's happened all the way down to our kindergartners? We're in an advanced society. Social media, media outlets are playing a big role in our community's lives. When it was talked about earlier, the ISIS kill lists. Yes, Kellerland just ran Friday. RB1s launched attacks in Syria. Do you not think that puts us on a target list? When we talk about funding and federal funding, what's the risk to our national security if an event happens in our school districts, in our elementary school, to the parents, the pilots that are flying those B-1s, to the defenders that go overseas? What's that going to happen? How's that going to hurt our national security and our interests around the world? Is that worth the debt? Are those 60 individuals that could potentially die in an active shooter? Best case scenario, 3-minute response time. And that's not a slide on our police department and our law enforcement, by no means. That's an outstanding response time, but still leaves 60 lives in the balance. What's the price tag for that? When I grew up, I didn't have to worry about this stuff. I could take my shotgun to my high school and leave it in the back of my truck. We're at a different time. Nobody wants to be here. But we as a society, until we come up with a conclusion on how we're going to address the problems that are in our world today as a society, we're going to face this. Having these 2 additional members standing in our schools, building relationships with our children and law enforcement, enabling people to communicate threats to our law enforcement outlets. It's another means, it's a sensory organ, and we have to develop that. Statistically and other things, looking at it, we've taught active shooter lockdown scenarios in our schools for years. We're seeing it in the military now, because everybody locked down, hid, weren't proactive, didn't try to get out. Now we're looking at this, we see it in our military. Our members in training believe the first thing they should do in an active shooter event is hide, because we've institutionalized the training. We've taken the thought process out of it. We've developed it. Let's develop something good. Let's develop communication with law enforcement. This is the opportunity we have right now to start that.
Thank you.
I realize it's a hard subject. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Mr. Tome, is there anybody else from the public that wish to speak on this? We got one more person before, since we're taking public comment.
You got 2 there.
Wait,
Bonchi and-
he's hiding me.
Bonchi and
We got 2 more people that'd like to speak. We're gonna take public comment before we.
My name is Florence Thompson. I live in Caputa. I worked at Douglas Schools for 19 years, so I have a real affinity for the community there. And Douglas Schools, I really agree they should have a couple of extra officers. That would be great. However, Douglas Schools is a unique resource. They have a huge number of highly trained security people there who that is their job in the Air Force. They work security, or they are already trained in firearms and that type of thing, and emergency control and that type of thing. You may not be aware, but South Dakota has a school sentinel law. And this law, I was involved in helping testify for that law, does train people who are already good candidates, such as you might have your already trained security people there in the Douglas community. They are trained, they are approved and trained through the state police academy. They get 80 hours of additional training. They're put through the same program that the police are put through in that area of expertise. And they also get trauma medical training, so that when there is a shooting incident or another type of incident, oftentimes the usual scenario is to keep the emergency responders outside until the area is secured. So the people that are inside, if they have trauma training, they can be treating any wounded people at the time, even though the building is not secured. So this is a wonderful program. A lot of people have made a lot of comments about it that are naive. I think you should look into it. Get the information from the State Police Academy, from the Attorney General's office. This was passed by the legislature by an overwhelming majority, and it was approved by the governor, and it is a fine program. And that way you will have responders right in the schools, in every classroom, or maybe not every classroom, but any perpetrators would not know who was armed and who was not armed. And so it does harden your target. It makes the kids a lot safer. It makes that emergency response time very short.
Thank you,
So I hope you'll consider that at Douglas Schools.
Tanchi?
Good morning. I'm just going to piggyback on that a little
Need
bit.
to recognize you.
Tanchi Weaver. Yes. I have a set of kids that are military, and so I understand the concerns with ISIS kill lists. I would also point out that I'm just going to kind of underline some of the things that Florence told you. Yes, this bill was passed in 2013. It is very similar to a program in the state of Iowa, and the acronym is FASTER, FASTER. You can Google that and learn a little bit about it. It's very similar to ours, not exact, but similar. The Sentinel program is based on a concept that we're all familiar with, the federal air marshals, where an unknown person on that flight will be prepared to confront or take down anyone perpetrating death and destruction on the plane. We all count on those people, and it's not necessary to know who they are, but that they have good training, and we rely on that. I think a lot of the fear of firearms has kept people from having a really reasonable conversation about this situation, and I understand that Douglas School is in a kind of a special circumstance because so many of their kids are military. But I would ask you to also consider informing yourselves on the Sentinel program. The sponsor of the bill was Representative Scott Craig. It was a House bill. I think it was 1087 that year. And the Senate sponsor was Craig Teason, who is now deceased, but he at first was against it, but when he grew to understand it, he was an enthusiastic supporter. So thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you, Tanchi. I take more, we've taken some public comment, but I'd like to refocus more on the employees and what's on the agenda. I know you guys have some great concerns over the active shooters and stuff, but I also feel the more publicity we give that type of stuff, the more problems we're going to end up having. So I'd like to focus on more of the personal, the SRO, the resource officer, and we definitely understand the training and so forth, but I hope you understand where I'm coming from. In the media, please, I respect your constraints on that also. Mr.
Chairman, if I may, then I just have a few slides I'll run through real quick, just to give you some of the dollars and a little bit of the background. So, maybe there. Our current school liaison program for the sheriff's office just shows you the schools that we have, and 5 school liaisons in the various schools, plus a supervisor. So timeline for hiring, that's why we're here today. What we're balancing is 3 different years, if you will. We have our county fiscal year, which is a calendar year. We have the school fiscal year, which is July 1st to June 30th. And then we have the school year. So we're trying to reconcile all 3 of those years to put this in place. So what we would need to do is, if the commission approved the 2 positions, then we need to, back hire, because they'd come out of our patrol division. So we'd back hire in patrol. We'd do that in May with the 2 school liaisons starting in August, as you can see up here, reporting when the school year starts. And then we backfill those 2 positions in September. So we got a little bit of a gap, but that's kind of the timeline that we look at from trying to keep, all of our gaps filled and, still fulfilling our mission in our patrol division and not shorting it. So the cost, this is really what it boils down to. It's always about the money, right? So Douglas has been very generous in their consideration on this, because we said, there's one-time costs, some startup costs. So you can see the cost, and I think you have this PowerPoint printed out. Holly presented that or provided that to you. It's about $62,000 in 2018 for Douglas School District. And for the sheriff's office, it's about $83,000. We're absorbing all those costs. I believe that we should help be part of this solution. If we come with a need, then let's help be part of this solution. So both Douglas and us have, as our budget within the sheriff's office, had offered this in terms of a solution to get us to where we need to be. And again, I get it that we're out of sync for our the budget presentations coming up in June for the 2019 budget. And I can tell you in terms of tax support requests from the sheriff's office, we've always had a lean budget. If you look at the last 3 or 4 years, we tend to have another lean budget, this year in terms of, tax support requests. Not going to commit to a dollar amount because we haven't finished our budgets yet. So 2019 costs, here's really what it's about going forward. So the cost to Douglas is an increase of $62,000, which again, they've discussed and supported. The increase to Pennington County is 88,000. What's unique about the school liaison program for our area in particular, because we're a tourist area, the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally, the Central States Fair, all those things that get crunched into the summer months. When the school is out, that's our busiest time of year. So we take our school liaison officers and put them on the street to help cover all that additional workload that we have in the summertime. So it's good. It's a good formula for us from a staffing perspective. So with that, that's kind of just a quick overview of the numbers. I know you have them in front of you, and we'll certainly be available for any questions you have. Thank you.
So, Mr. Tome, what is Sheriff's Department's recommendations?
You know, it's our recommendation we support this request. That's why we brought it forward. And again, school district initially contacted us, and we went through a series of meetings with them and agreed on a timeline, dollars, those sorts of things. And yes, we strongly support the request.
Okay. Is there, we took public comment, discussion from the board. Mr. Buskard.
Do you know, Sheriff, how many students do we have down at Stevens and at Central? Anybody got any ideas?
Chris is our sergeant of our school liaison program. He can introduce himself and provide those numbers.
Good morning. I'm Chris Heislip. I'm the sergeant that's the first line supervisor for all of our school resource officers. And we cover Stevens, and we're almost up to 1,700 students now at Stevens.
And how about Central?
Central's a little bit higher. I don't have those numbers since we don't cover them, but they're around 2,100-ish, somewhere around in there.
Got 2 resource officers at Stevens and none at Central?
No, the police department, Rapid City Police Department covers Central. We cover Stevens. So it's a collaborative effort between our 2 agencies to cover the schools in the Rapid City Area School District.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. DeSanto.
You answered one of my questions. You just told me that the city does cover a liaison officer for Central. I'm in total agreement that we need the officers out there. I'm not arguing that at all. What I am concerned about is the fact that the city of Box Elder isn't sharing in this cost. They have, many of the students out there are city of Box Elder students. I know many of them are from outside of Box Elder in the county, but I believe that the city of Box Elder needs to step up. I'm not asking the city of Box Elder to provide the officers, but I believe that the city of Box Elder should be ponying up some of the money for this.
Chairman.
Oh, did you have a follow-up with that?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, and Commissioner DeSanto's correct, of the students in the Douglas School District, of course, everybody's in Pennington County, but about a third of those live outside of the city limits of Box Elder. Historically, Box Elder has not been engaged in the school liaison program, largely because of resources, I guess. But we've asked them about this recent request. It would be fragmented to have the Box Elder Police Department and the Sheriff's Office both trying to provide the services, but they could come with funding if they were so inclined. And I guess we could go back and make that ask of Box Elder at some point to see where they're at. I'd hate to delay this process today because, again, we're up against a tight timeline in terms of hiring deputies to replace and whatnot. But if you would want to assist us in engaging Box Elder with a discussion on that, I'd be glad to set up a meeting and have that discussion.
I would like to engage in Box Elder and talking about that. I just don't see why, when they've got skin in the game, they have children there. They're collecting taxpayer money from the city. They should be helping out with this.
I agree, and if you can help me go arm twist them, I'd appreciate the help.
All right.
All right.
He asked my question.
He asked your question. I think, is there any further discussion from this board? Mr. Farabee first.
The sheriff mentioned a key word, resources. Box Elder doesn't have the resources, and Douglas School doesn't have the resources, and so Pennington County does, huh? This is a matter of fairness. You know, there's other school districts in Pennington County. Hill City, Wall, New Underwood. I think we need to, we the county, rather than helping these folks, we need to sit back and, what's our game plan? Is that part of the sheriff's responsibility to have liaison on it? schools. That, before I finish resources, just 3, 4, 5 months ago, our folks got concerned about a deputy stationed or a guard, security guard person stationed up here. Didn't have the money. All of a sudden, we've got 88,000. Well, what gives? Obviously, there's a security concern across the country, not just in Douglas. And I'm not picking, I'm an Air Force person, so I guess I can associate with Air Force people. Superintendent mentioned building permits. About half as many as, or half of what Rapid City's had. Are those all in Box Elder, or are they rural, or do you have any idea?
They're spread out, sir.
But most of them Box Elder.
In the municipality.
Yeah. Okay. No, the resources, no, we don't have a printing press like the feds do. So obviously, we shouldn't be taking on this until we sit back as a county and say, oh, what are we going to do with Hill City and New Underwood and Wall and the liaison program, period. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fairman. Mr. Buskerud, you want to wait for it?
Yeah, and as long as the sheriff is here. I guess my concern is this, and it's probably small peanuts, but now we're gonna buy 2 more cars. What, are we gonna have 4 cars out there sitting now every day? Because I imagine the 2 that are there have vehicles too.
Mr. Tone.
Okay, I'll answer Commissioner Buskerud's question first, but yes, each school liaison officer has a vehicle assigned to them. And, we buy, I think, say, program cars that are used cars, try to buy them as effectively as we can and cheaply as we can. To Commissioner Fairby's question, is school liaison a function of the sheriff's office? Absolutely. If we don't do it, who does? And school safety is clearly part of our mission, keeping our citizens safe. As far as to other school districts, if other school districts approach us, then I guess we'll have this discussion with them as well. But fact of the matter is, nobody else has. So to tell Douglas, well, let's wait for a year or 2 and see if somebody else approaches us, I think is irresponsible. We have a request before us. I know it's about dollars. I know it's a hard decision, but until somebody else approaches us, I don't think we should sit back and do nothing. That's not the prudent way to do business.
Ms. Haggard, did you?
I'm good.
Okay, my comment is, I think between the Stevens and the Douglas, I think we could utilize the number of people that we have. I mean, if one needs to shift over, Chris, wouldn't that be the right thing? If you need some people over there, you could, and they're resource officers, and as was stated, I think it's not there just to try and intimidate. These people are to help encourage these young children, not, you build a relationship with them so that they don't fear officers and people in the law, but actually get along with them and help them through life challenges. That's what I believe. And it's not just the presence. Am I right, Chris? You could utilize both?
Mr. Chairman, all the studies are very, very clear as to how to prevent these incidents is to provide a safe, positive learning environment. And we are an integral part of that as a school resource officer. I could tell you that right now, the demands on the program have far exceeded the resources that we currently have. So, for example, at Stevens, yes, we do, and that's one of the reasons why we have the cars, because we may ask a school resource officer to supplement another school, especially due to training, illness, vacation, and the such. But right now, Douglas, they are busy every day, and I'm not talking about just normal busy. They are triaging incidents right now. We've had several threats towards the school, some high profile, but we're averaging about a serious threat against our schools once a week or once every week and a half that we have to follow up on completely. And they use us as a resource to help respond to that. Now, we are not only there just for the response if the carnage starts like our parent stated. We are there a lot for the prevention measures, and I think at Douglas alone I can count 11 instances in which we were integral, and because of the relationships that we have made with those students, we're able to prevent a possible tragedy in the future. That's hard to show in numbers, but that's kind of how we play into the school environment.
Thanks, Chris. I think I'm going to do my own follow-up here. I think you answered my question. I was trying to avoid the subject of social media and some of those threats that are coming through. And I think that takes a lot of resources from the staff to investigate and look those over. And I know there's been a great number increase in those lately. And that's why I was trying to prevent some of the talk of this, because once we start talking about it, then they escalate again. And that's was my number one fear. But
Mr. Chairman, if I may also, we've had another major issue that has confronted us that we haven't normally had to deal with, and that is with youth suicide this year. Stevens alone, we've had dozens of referrals, and the schools lean on us and our expertise and our training to help de-escalate some of those situations and try and prevent some of those tragedies. So that's another thing that we're dealing with in all the school districts that we're in charge of.
thank you, Chris. Any further, Ron Busker?
One comment. This is a very emotional for us and for the parents, obviously. I just don't, in my mind, I don't think that 2 more officers out there are gonna stop anything. I'm sorry. If somebody wants to do it, they do. Why don't we concentrate instead and spend our money on locks and locking down and making students stay in the school? And isn't that more effective than having guards running around?
If I may, the studies show physical security is a portion of that. However, most of our threats come internally. And so all the studies show, I can throw all of the scientific studies that talk about a positive school environment and climate and communication. And in order to have that effective communication, you have to have positive relationships built up, and that takes time and trust. So I know we spoke about the Sentinel program, but we're much more than just the response to that. We are preventing not only the active shooter, but we deal with students who are, in a poor environment or are getting abused. And we have the authority and the power to do something about it, and the training to build those relationships and those trust with those students. That is your number one way that you're going to prevent a major tragedy, is those relationships. That's bottom. That is clearly scientifically proven that's how we're going to affect this, and that's what we have control over.
And I guess I agree with you. I still think maybe we need locks in the doors, but I think the number one way is parents. And I think that's where we're really letting the students down, is the parents. But there's not much we can do about that.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, the school has invested already a lot of money, of their own money, obviously, to physical security and to improving our responses. We've introduced and spearheaded the ALICE training program, and that's something that the liaisons, have spearheaded with the school districts to improve our response in that measure too. So the school is not sitting on their hands and not making the investment. We're looking at all facets of how to improve school safety.
Thank you, Chris. I was just checking to see, I don't think Deb spoke yet, but did you want?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Hadcock.
Here's where I'm at. I believe that Mr. Tome and Chris know about the bill, the Centennial Program, and they're still coming in and asking us for 2 FTEs for Douglas School. So for me, I'm not trained in this area, and Mr. Tome and Chris are, and they're telling us this is a good idea. I don't think they just come in because, okay, these guys wanted this, and now we're just going to do it because, it's the thing to do. I think they know if there's an issue, and there's going to be an issue, because of the increase of students, they're saying they need 2 more. I like being fiscally responsible as anybody else, but I also have to trust the people that do this for a living and know this and is their expertise. And again, I think they do, and they have looked at the Centennial Program because that's what they do. They're law enforcement, and those were passed by a law enforcement officer, our ex-chief that passed away. So I'm going to trust that this is a good idea and that we need to move forward. And I think in the future, we better increase our budget, because I believe for the future, in our schools, this is gonna increase in all our schools. That's my
Thank you, Ms. Hadcock. Mr.
Bottom line.
DeSanto, did you have one more comment?
Yes. Again, I'm not downplaying the importance of these officers. I think everybody in this room knows, if they watch the news at all, that having our children interact with police officers on a daily basis is going to help these children to grow up respecting our law enforcement and make for better relationships in the future, where we might have less people attacking officers and bringing violence against our officers. I think, like I said earlier, I think that addressing the cost shouldn't be squarely put upon the county and the school. Box Elder needs to share in this, and I'm very willing. You set it up, I'll be there. I also think that as far as the vehicles are concerned, as Ron mentioned, I don't see why, and maybe Sheriff Tome, you can expand on this for me, but I don't see why if we've got 4 officers out there, then 2 officers per car. I don't see where we need 4. The schools aren't that far apart from one another, so, or at least in Box Elder. So those are my concerns. I just don't see that the county should be shouldering it all. The Box Elder's got to step up. So.
Thank you, Mr. DeSanto. I think at this point in time, before we move forward, I'd like to have a motion on the floor. We've given.
motion to approve.
There's been a motion to approve. I'll second for discussion. So the motion is to approve. Mr. Farabee, you had your hand up. You wanted to speak? We have a motion on the floor for
Yes.
approval.
I'd like to ask the sheriff why it was we couldn't afford a security guard up here a few months ago, and now we can have 2. Not the same, not double the cost, but why couldn't we protect our own people, but yet we can go to a school district and protect those folks? Can you explain that, please?
Did you want to answer? I think that right now we have a motion on the floor for these officers, not for upstairs. But
Mr. Chairman, I can respond. I mean, it's apples and oranges. I mean, that was an ongoing annual expenditure for those 2 positions. So, I mean, fixing it for the balance of 6 months, 12 months or something, that's something we could have absorbed, but that was going on in perpetuity, and it's something that you cut out of the budget. So to ask for us to reinstate it, we needed the FTE and we needed the funding to carry that mission out going forward. It was an annual appropriation, that's why.
follow up.
So why should my constituents in the Hill City School District who don't have liaison help pay for another school district? Is that fair? This is an issue of fairness. The school districts, they come to us. We don't have a printing press like the feds do, a money printing press.
Mr. Farabee.
Call the question.
Motion on the floor is for approval, and that's to add 2 FTEs to the sheriff's office to support the additional school liaison deputies at the school district.
Roll call, please.
All in favor, roll call vote, indicate by saying aye.
Buskerud?
No.
DeSanto?
No.
Farabee?
No.
Adcock?
Aye.
LaCroy?
Aye. At this point, the motion fails.
I know.
16.
So would I.
Item 16. Sorry, folks. Thank you for your input.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Busker.
I'll be abstained from this. I think my wife had something to do with the contract.
Okay.
You did.
Item 16. Items from Emergency Services Communication Center.
Good morning, Kevin Carley, Director, ESCC.
Thanks, Kevin.
We have before you we're requesting the approval of the Joint Powers Agreement so we can move forward with our plan at the backup center in Camp Rapid. Everything's been in place, and we're at the point where the Guard needs this in place before they can begin their construction. So we're asking for that approval.
Motion to approve.
Moved by Hadcock,
Second.
Seconded by DeSanto. One comment I will make on this is I believe, as reading through the contract, is at any time, either the National Guards or EMS, if the funding appropriations aren't there, then we can get out of the contract from either sides. So it all depends on the appropriations and the funding also, so we do have that.
Yes.
Any further discussion?
I have a substitute motion.
Mr. Farabee?
We continue this item until next meeting or until such time as all five of us can look at the facilities and firsthand. I haven't been out there. I'd like to see it before I vote.
I hear no second.
I'll second. I don't have any
Second for
problem.
discussion.
Mr. Chair.
Moved by Farabee to continue to the next meeting so he can visit the Camp Rapid, and seconded by Mr. DeSanto. Mr. DeSanto.
I don't see any problem with a commissioner wanting to go out and visit the facility if that's what it takes.
Is there, Kevin, is there any timelines to when this needs to be signed?
Yeah, we would like to move forward. The Guard has already started the process of letting the bids for their construction, but they aren't going to actually approve any of those bids until we have this joint powers agreement in place. So we certainly can set up a tour immediately to have you guys out there, but we'd like to move forward with the agreement if that's possible.
Okay.
Chairman,
Ms. Adcock.
I agree with Kevin. There's always time to look at it. We've just approved the funding for it. And I think the people that have done this did a really good job. I think it's something we need and something we need to move forward on. And we do have time, lots of time after that, to go out there and look at the facility.
Thank you, Ms. Hadcock. My comment is that I believe that also. I think it's always been an open door for a commissioner to go out and visit and tour and gather the information. But we did approve the funding from the beginning of the meeting. Mr.
Sorry, I just wanted to add a couple things. The timelines are tight, and the other thing is we've got a not-to-exceed interest rate on that, and that's only good until May 24th, and unfortunately, that's one of the reasons we're having to go back and cut some things out of this, is because the cost of borrowing money is going up. So I'm afraid if we do this delay, we're gonna risk having that interest rate go higher. And then also the Guard they're in their 30 days for letting the bid. If we go out there and look at the facility today, it's gonna be largely as it was for the credit union. And we've certainly got the plans, and I'd be happy to show you the facility anytime, Commissioner Farabee, but I think it is important that we approve this today so that we don't risk that higher interest rate, and so that the Guard can get started on their part, which is a majority of that cost of remodeling that building for us. So I just ask you to consider that.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Farabee, do you have a follow-up?
Sir, been around a couple of years, and hurry up so they don't get a chance to take a look, just in case there is something we might want to hesitate on. We're making the decision for the taxpayers. So just hurry up so they don't get a chance to take a look at it, and that's, I don't buy that story.
Thank you. Any for Mr. DeSanto?
Our next meeting's Tuesday, May 1st. Is that correct?
I don't have the schedule.
I believe it is, Tuesday, May 1st, and the deadline's the 24th, so it's not gonna be in conflict, and I understand the concern about the interest rate, because I know interest rates are going up. But if we make a decision on May 1st, that shouldn't cause an issue with our interest rate.
Further discussion?
Chairman,
Ms. Hadcock.
bottom line is the building's not going to be done. They're just funding the building. It's a centennial. He told you it's a centennial credit union. No one's trying to hurry it up or make it go through. It just makes sense that he told you it's a centennial bank was. He's not going to have it remodeled. He can show you what's going to be in it. I don't think there's no hurry up on anything. I think these guys have well thought this through. It's been on the books and for a while. So it's kind of crazy that people all of a sudden want to go look at things when they've had time to visit with this for how long we've been working on this, Ted?
For a year.
Thank you, sir. No hurry up on it.
Thank you. My final comments before we go to vote is, I read through the agreement, and as I stated earlier, this all depends on appropriations and funding and so forth. It could get canceled out one way or another. There's a lot of moving parts with this, and then this is a piece of it that moves it forward. I would just ask for my fellow commissioners' support in moving this forward, and we can definitely revisit it if needed to be later on after they go through some of the paperwork. But I did go through all the paperwork and read it since it's required my signature. I did go through that, so I'd just ask for your support in moving this forward.
Roll call, please.
The motion on the floor is to continue this to the next meeting,
Correct.
and, okay. So all in favor, with Mr. Buskard abstaining, all in favor indicate by saying aye. And
Roll call, please.
I just said roll call. Please wait till you're recognized to speak.
DeSanto?
Nay. Or aye.
Aye, okay. Farabee?
Yes.
Adcock?
No.
LaCroy?
No.
2-2.
Motion, on a 2-2, it fails.
Carried to the next meeting.
Carried to the next meeting, so it's continued. Sorry, folks. Items from equalization, abatement, item number 17. Shannon.
Good morning, Shannon Rittberger, Director of Equalization. I'm bringing an abatement request to you for years 2016 and 2017. This is an owner-occupied issue. We had a deed, actually a couple of deeds that transferred ownership of the property, and one of those on the certificate of real estate value attached with the deed, it noted should not be classed as owner-occupied. In the process we have, the owner-occupied classification was removed. No letter was sent, didn't need to be. Upon reading the details of the deed, it transferred ownership of a well and water line and not the land and the home and everything on that legal description. So it was a mistake. The property did not change ownership, at least the home, the owner-occupied property didn't. It was the well on it.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Hadcock, seconded by Buskard for approval. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Farabee.
I've been here for 3 years and 4 months now, and this owner-occupied thing keeps coming up. So it looks like we must have a problem in our system. Are we ever going to get it fixed, or are we just going to keep abating? Thank you.
No discussion. I don't blame. Motion on the floor is for
Keep
approval,
going.
and it's been seconded. Any further discussion? Public, private, commission? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thanks.
Thank you.
Simon. Items from highway.
Morning, Tom Wilsey, Highway Department. This is a recommendation for a award for the wall fuel system replacement. We attached the bid tab for that above referenced project. Bids were authorized by the commission on March 6th and opened on April 10th. We received one bid for the project. That was Grimm's Pump and Industrial Supply, Rapid City. The amount of $246,348. This was over our estimate. We had estimated $200,000. We can cover this with our funding in our 2018 budget, mostly because all of our other projects that we have let this year, we have come in over 90,000 under. So I do have a contingency to cover the overage. It is our recommendation for a motion to award the wall fuel system replacement to Grimm's Pump and Industrial Supply, the amount of $246,348.
Chairman?
Thanks, Tom. Mrs. Hadcock.
Tom, since you have one bidder, we have done that before where, can you try and rebid again, or does that?
We
cause
have
issues?
twice since I've been here in the last 4 years, and they both cost us more the next year.
Next bid?
The next bid, the price went up.
'Cause
Both my experiences.
even with one bidder?
Even with one. We tried to get a second bidder. We got a hold of some people down in Denver, and out in Sioux Falls that they said they could do it, but they never bid it.
Okay. Thank you, Tom.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. DeSanto.
any reason for that? I mean, we have so much work around here that these companies
This
don't need to
Grimm's-
bid out on things?
Grimm's is very busy right now.
Yeah,
Grimm's Industrial. Mr. Commissioner LaCroix can probably
Buried, huh?
attest to it. The bid, I'll be honest, the bid, what do I want to say? Bid environment for this type of work really is not good. And I don't see it getting any better in the next year.
Principles of economics, supply and demand.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
They
told it, we got an estimate from them about 8 months ago, 8 months ago. It was that 200,000. So then a year, this is what the difference is. They said they forgot to put the concrete in and gave us excuses, but I look at what the bid, how much work has been going out this last year, last 6 months.
My comment on rebidding is, number one, you've already let out what one bidder's costs are, so, you know, to be fair, you know,
Yes.
somebody's gonna be, they're gonna come back with at least that or more, if not more, especially if they have.
That's my experience.
And then if the work's, it's just a typical other stuff, there's other work out there, they could just jack it up and just say, I'm not gonna do it. And it is a busy environment out there with removals and installations.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. DeSanto.
I would like to make one comment here. This is for the installation. We already figure on doing all the removal of the old system ourselves. Between us and the DENR, we have got it set up so that we're doing all the removal. This is only installation.
Because DNR helps with.
Well, I'm gonna trust you, Lloyd, because you're in the business and you know that people aren't gonna come crawling over each other to chase after this bid if they see that it's already been bid at 246. I understand business. I'll move for approval.
Motion's been moved,
Second.
seconded by Buskird for approval. Further discussion? Mr. Farabee.
Is there any way we can look at what we have planned there and maybe do some alterations to our design? No, there's before you answered that, the whole thing of, do we really need all this, or is some of this just a want?
This system is basically a minor improvement over what we have now. The main thing that we have improved is the software for tracking, because the old system, they don't do that anymore. Because the system we have before is, I think it's 16 or 17 years old. That software they don't use anymore.
Let me interject there for a minute.
Go ahead.
Just to clarify, because I kind of disagree, because you're moving the tanks, number one, the pumps ain't gonna be over the tanks, so that keeps the moisture out. Number one, that's one of the biggest improvement. Another part is the tank's gonna be bigger to where you can get a full-sized
Yes.
truckload, which you get a discount for.
Yeah. Because to do any work on our tanks now, we have to tear the whole system out just to go down to the tanks.
Mr. Chair.
I think, was you done?
Yeah, a $250,000 isn't just chump change. 246,000, that's $250,000.
Okay.
That's more than a little bit to me, anyway.
Okay. I think he's done. Mr. DeSanto.
Tom gave me a scare there for a second that was the only improvement we were making, because I thought originally the whole thought behind this was to keep the water out of the tanks. But we also, you're gonna have pumps on both sides of the truck. Every truck has 2 tanks, one on each side. It's gonna make fueling quicker. Lloyd's point that you're gonna be able to take a full load of fuel is a significant discount. It's not just a little bit, it's a significant discount.
We looked at the bids and we estimated about 10 cents a gallon difference.
And how many gallons are in each tank?
Last year on these tanks, we used 37,000 gallons.
Okay, so $3,700 a year, or a load, $3,700 a load.
Well,
Or is that full year?
$3,700 savings in a year.
Oh, 37,000, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
We used 37,000 gallons last year.
okay,
And at a dime, that's $3,700 savings last year.
that's what I said. All right.
Could be.
Okay.
Motion on the floor.
Yep, motion on the floor is for approval. Any further discussion? Seeing none? Oh,
Second.
oh,
I don't know if we had been or not.
yeah, it was moved by Hadcock, seconded by DeSanto.
DeSanto and Busker.
Oh, DeSanto and Busker, sorry.
I seconded it again then.
You
I
seconded it
for
again.
the second time.
I'll get it right by the end of the day.
You write it down.
All right, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Same
Aye.
sign. One no by Mr. Farabee. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much.
Motion to take 10.
Moved by Busker to
Second.
take 10-minute break, seconded by DeSanto. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. We're on a break. Item number 20, we're coming out of break from planning and zoning. We need to go into Board of Adjustments. Get a motion to go into Board of Adjustments.
So
Or do you-
moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to go into Board of Adjustments. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're in the Board of Adjustments.
Thank you.
PJ.
Good morning. PJ Conover, Director of Planning Department. The item before you is variance 1801, which is a request to reduce the minimum required side yard setback from 25 feet to 14 feet and to add on to an existing, so they can add on to an existing garage in a low-density residential district. The applicants are Rodney and Deborah Hildebrandt, and I'm not sure if they're in the audience for questions later. As stated, the applicant's request is to add on an addition to their existing garage, which is the structure to the south, and the addition would be to the south towards the south property line. It would be 11 feet into the 25-foot required yard setback, so they're asking for that 14-foot setback. And this is a hand drawing of their submittal during their application, which shows what they're looking to do. This is the addition right here. The reason for the variance request is so that they don't have, in their words, so they don't have to take on unreasonable costs for construction. That's the reasoning. The existing property has a single-family residence built in 1993, has deck additions. The garage was built with a building permit in 1993 as well. There was a patio attachment to the house in 2000. They have a current operating permit, and the plat that this property was under is Book 16, page 54, which requires a 6-foot utility easement of the interior on all lot lines, so the applicant's request would not go into the utility easement. This was routed through the interdepartmental review and no items of concern came back. Per section 509 of the Pennington County zoning ordinance, there are some criteria for the Board of Adjustment to consider when making a decision. Item A, that specific circumstances or conditions such as exceptional narrowness, topography, or siting exist. Staff has observed through a site visit there are no specific circumstances or condition that warrant approval of variance 1801. Item B, that the variance is not granting use which is otherwise excluded from this particular district. Approval of this variance would not grant a use that is not allowed in low-density residential already. Item C, that due to the specific circumstances or existing conditions, strict application of the zoning ordinance would be an unwarranted hardship. Strict application would require the addition to be at 25 feet from all property lines. The applicant indicated, like as stated before on the submitted application, that the hardship would be an avoidance of unnecessary building costs. And also, there appears to be no specific circumstances or existing conditions to warrant approval of 1801. The fourth item to consider is that granting of a variance is not contrary to the public interest and is in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. Granting this setback variance would allow for a reduced setback in a low-density residential district, which is not in harmony with the zoning ordinance. As the time of the staff report was written, there have been no letters of concern or complaint received by our department. We actually received a letter of support from the property owner to the south, who would be the most affected by the setback variance. In conclusion, there does not appear to be any condition or existing circumstance that would warrant approval. The landowner most affected has submitted a letter of approval, and approval would allow a structure to be 11 feet into the 25-foot setback. If the Board of Adjustment chooses to approve variance 1801, staff recommends 2 conditions be included.
Move for approval.
Second.
Been moved for approval with 2 conditions and by DeSanto and seconded by Hadcock. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Busker.
you know, I've been pretty lax on this lately, but criteria for variance request, A, B, C, and D, and it says that make sure that the following criteria are met, and they don't meet C and D, so I'm gonna be voting no.
Any further discussion?
Hey, Mr. Chair, if I might, this is, how many, what size is the lot? 1 point?
1.01, I believe.
And it's zoned how?
Low-density residential.
And it should be zoned how?
For that lot size, it should be suburban residential.
And what's the side yard setback in suburban residential?
Side yard is 8 feet, and in SRD. In LDR, it's 25 all the way around.
Right. You understand my point? This is, it's not zoned, it's just, the whole thing's a joke. I'll be voting yes.
Further discussion? Motion on the floor is approval with 2 conditions. Any further discussion from public or commission?
Roll call, please.
All in favor signify by saying aye in the roll call vote.
Buskerud,
No.
DeSanto,
Yes.
Farabee,
Yes.
Hadcock,
Aye.
LaCroy.
Aye. Motion carries with 1 no vote from Mr. Busker. Need a motion to come out of Board of Adjustments.
Move to come out of the Board of Adjustment.
Moved by
Second.
DeSanto, seconded by Hadcock to come out of Board of Adjustments. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We're out of Board of Adjustments. Now we're to the consent calendar.
Correct. Yep.
PJ.
Board of Commissioners uses a consent agenda to act on non-controversial and routine planning and zoning items quickly. The consent agenda is acted upon by 1 motion vote of the board. Items may be removed from the consent agenda and placed on the regular agenda at the request of a board member or a citizen. The consent agenda for planning and zoning contains the following items. Item B, second reading of rezone 1801 and comprehensive plan amendment 1801 for Boom Construction, and approval has been recommended. Item C, road naming South Cavern Road for Chris Peterson, and approval has been recommended.
This is the consent calendar. Is there a motion for approval or discussion? Any discussion from the public? See none. Any from the board? Mr. Farabee.
I want to oppose. See, Charlie?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Motion to approve item B on the consent.
Mr. Farabee, Mr. Farabee wanted C pulled. I'm sorry. And motion on the floor by Hadcock to approve B, seconded by DeSanto. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Item number C was pulled by Mr. Farabee.
Thank you.
Frank Boyceth, Planner 2 and County Addressing Coordinator. This request is to rename this as Cavern Road in order to provide enough addresses by creating a new address range for this road, as there are currently 4 and soon to be 5 addresses, structures that need addresses on this road.
Thank you, Mr. Farabee.
And my question is, where is it written that 5 is the magic number for another? Before you answer that question, we've got hundreds and hundreds of roads, and some of them only have 2. Haven't run across 1 yet, but have 2 residences on a street. And where does it say 5?
It is not directly spelled out. That says anywhere that 5 addresses need to be, more than that, need their own road name. But by following the address grid for the county, by following those standards, it's required that anything that has any driveway that would have more than 5 addresses or at least 5, needs its own address range and thereby name to create enough addresses for it. Because if we get too many addresses stacked on one driveway, they're not adequately spread out along the road where one would assume them to be.
I guess I didn't follow that.
So if currently there's these 4 and now 5 lots here, and there's eventually going to be a house here, meaning a 6th address that has not yet been assigned. But if they're all addressed currently off of West Highway 44, and if we continue to assign addresses there, and if there any more subdivisions happen and more addresses are required, more and more of those addresses will be drawn off of Highway 44, whereas they would be assumed and geographically should be spread out along the highway.
I guess I'm still missing the point. You line up mailboxes, whether it's 2 mailboxes or 10 mailboxes, the mail guy is not going to go in on that road, whatever we call that road. So how many mailboxes? Well, I guess obviously we're not communicating, so I'm going to vote no. And before I say any more, 3 of those folks are going to have to change. There's 3 lots there now, residences. They're going to have to change their mailing address.
Yes, correct. All of those addresses would need to be reassigned.
Now, let me
based
finish.
on
Anybody
name.
that's changed mailing addresses knows it takes 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years before your correspondence get caught up with you. So anyway, I know these folks, the 3 folks, signed a petition, say they don't mind changing address, but I don't see why. And I talked to Mr. Peterson, and he said he doesn't care. He's the applicant.
I've spoken with the applicant, and it's my understanding that he has spoken with all of his neighbors and that they are okay with having their address changed to assign it properly.
And this was a 911
Yeah.
suggestion. It's a safety issue.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. You done, Mr. Fairby?
I guess I'm done, so I'll just vote no.
Okay. So that, I would just reiterate, that's more for 911 purposes than it is for,
Yeah, so
Okay.
for them to be correctly located.
okay.
Oh, and I do have a comment on that.
Let me ask, do we have a motion on the floor yet? No, we don't.
Move approval.
Oh, no, we don't, no.
No
So now
motion
we
yet.
Move
Right, and the
approval.
recommendation is for Cavern Road, not as South Cavern Road as was originally on the application.
Okay. We have,
Is that the motion?
is that the motion?
Yep.
Second.
Motion made by Hadcock, seconded by Buskard. Mr. Fairby wanted to follow up.
My experience with first responders, like fire, ambulance, is the more names you got out there, the tougher it is, especially for the rookies, to find it. But if it's West Highway 44, and then there's a number up there, a lot easier to find than Cavern Road. So I don't buy that argument either, but go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Fairby. Any further discussion? Any from the public? Seeing none, motion on the floor is for approval. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries with 1 no for Mr. Farabee. That was item C.
Good morning, Brittany Molitor, Environmental Planning Supervisor. Item D is a first reading and public hearing of Ordinance Amendment OA 1803 to amend Sections 205B and 205C General Agriculture District and Section 212C Heavy Industrial District of the Pennington County Zoning Ordinance. These changes are in response to the most recent changes to the mining ordinance, Section 320. Under the General Agriculture District, there were still permitted uses, temporary quarries, and drilling for oil and gas, and extraction of sand, gravel, or minerals under the permitted uses on General Agriculture District, and I'm just asking that those get moved to under conditional uses to be consistent with the new ordinance section.
Be my motion for discussion.
Second.
Moved by Hadcock, seconded by Buskard to approve the ordinance amendment of 18-03. Further discussion. Is there any discussion from public? Any more discussion from the board? Ms. Hadcock, you made the motion. Did you want to?
Nope, I'm in agreement.
Okay, Mr. Farabee, you wanted to speak?
Aren't we jumping the gun? No, this. From what I understand, we've had a suit filed against us on the on the amendment to the section 320. So until that's settled, aren't we kind of jumping the gun?
So legally say that.
Right.
What? Does violate code of conduct mean?
Oh, no, that's okay. We're just amending these to be consistent with the changes from 320 into conditional uses. Provided a mining permit.
What do you think, Ron?
I don't know.
What,
I guess this is it's just requesting a motion to amend some definitions.
No, just a change
To move.
permitted uses, but even so, if you look at section 205A1 under C, conditional uses, temporary quarries provided a mining permit, either way, we have a mining permit requirement in our ordinance, whether it would be under section 320 or 507B, whatever it goes back to. So that would still address that issue.
And my understanding of the current pending litigation that was spoken of, that's a declaratory action to determine whether or not the ordinance or the sections of the ordinance were adopted initially according to law. This won't affect that, so.
okay.
Okay.
It's a motion on the floor is proposed. Did you have follow-up, Mr. Farabee, before we?
Section 320 is a new section, right?
It pertaining to mining permits, correct?
It's a new section, and that's being questioned by, we have a complaint filed against us, and it's public record. So it's not confidential anyway. So I think we're jumping the gun.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Farabee. Any further discussion? Motion on the floor is for approval. Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries with 3 ayes and 2 noes from Mr. DeSanto and Mr. Farabee. Thank you. Item E.
Item E is Plan Unit Development Review 1603 for Dan and Nancy Evangelisto, Century Construction LLC, Century Land Holdings LLC, and Summer Creek Inn LLC. Provided a memo to the board, and I believe it was part of the online packet as well. This was continued to this meeting to give staff time to meet with some commissioners to discuss the conditions of 1603. Staff has not had time or the opportunity to do that. Also, the applicant and their lawyer had stated they wanted to meet with staff prior to the meeting. We actually were able to have that meeting yesterday afternoon. But as a result of all this, and again, staff has not been able to meet with commissioners relative to the conditions of 1603. Staff offers 3 recommendations of possible motions the board can take. The first is that continue the review of PU 1603 to May 15th, 2018 Board of Commissioners meeting. Approve the extension of 1603 with the conditions of approval as recommended by the Planning Commission, or approve the extension of PU 1603 with any proposed revisions to the recommended conditions of approval as discussed on April 17th, 2018.
Chairman,
Ms. Hadcock.
I'd like to continue this till May 15th, 2018 Board of Commissioner meetings. I have talked to some of the neighbors, and I've talked to the evangelistos about the timeline that a lot of things have been going on with Easter and me being sick and the planning, trying to meet with the planning. I went through like 12 of those conditions thoroughly and still need to look at some more. So again, if we could continue this, that would be my motion till May 15th.
Okay.
Second.
There's been a motion made by Ms. Hadcock to continue, seconded by Buskerud. Discussion on a continuance motion. Do you guys understand? Are you okay with the continuance? Okay, so it looks like the applicant's okay with the continuance. We have a motion and a second to continue to the May 15th. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks. Stormwater report.
So item F is the annual MS4 stormwater report. We have to submit this report annually to DENR to be in compliance with our NPDES permit for the municipal separate storm sewer system that we have. I do have a couple changes to note. Under the permit number, I will get that number from DENR. I'm actually meeting tentatively with them tomorrow to go over some new stuff because they have a new staff member that would like to meet with us and go over some of our program requirements. And then on page 6 at the top of the page, it says list all public education outreach goals that were completed in 2016. That should be 17. The biggest accomplishment that we did this year was that we actually got a MOU with the city of Rapid City for our joint stormwater programs, because a lot of the conveyances from Rapid City go into our conveyances, and with the 3 mile plating jurisdiction and some of the construction stuff that is done in the city limits, we have kind of a joint venture in it. So that was an accomplishment in some of the things that DENR was looking for in previous reports.
Chairman,
Ms. Hadcock.
I'd like to commend Brittany and the staff that do all the work for this and have worked very hard on achieving these goals. I think they have done an exceptional job, and we're working with the city and different cities, not just Rapid City. So thank you, Brittany, for all your work. You do a wonderful job for us. Work very hard. I get lots of compliments from the Forest Service, the DNR, and other state representatives of how much you work for them. So thank you for everything you do for us, Miss Brittany. Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the MS4 stormwater report and stormwater management plan?
In my motion?
Moved by Hadcock,
Second.
seconded by Buschard. Is there any discussion from the public? Any from the board? Mr. Farabee.
Obviously, this document needs considerable work, but I'll make the same point I've been making for years. Why is Universal Drive and Colonial Pine Hills considered part of the stormwater, whatever, by EPA or DNR or us? I don't know any drainages out Universal Drive, and Colonial Pine Hills was just an old pasture with gullies years ago before they stuck a bunch of houses on it. Don't have to answer that. Page 1, a table has been developed and is attached. I can't find table 1 in my document. A table has been developed and is attached. There's 2 items there. One's for pollutants and one's for strategies implemented. Page 2, a committee was formed in 2016 to review the Pennington County zoning ordinance pertaining to construction permits. At this time, legal is reviewing the proposed changes made by the committee and will be presented to the Planning Commission and Board of Commissioners in 2018. That's all history, isn't it? You caught the 2016 deal on page 11. And one of my constituents brought this issue up last year on the same document. Is if this document pertains to just those 3 areas, Rapid Valley, Universal Drive, and Colonial Pines, then why are we listing comments or remarks for the entire county? If this document's limited to those 3 areas, then why is the entire county listed here? That's page 11. Page 13, the same comment about legal is reviewing the construction permit, the proposed changes, and so on and so forth. That's all history. Page 14, it says the BMP having the desired effect, why or why not? I don't see any why or why not there, and the same thing on page 15, so this document is a sloppy document.
Call the question. Let's move forward.
Question has been called.
What you mean?
I think we're ready to vote.
Yep.
All motion on the floor is for approval. Moved by Hadcock, seconded by Buschard. Any further discussion? Seeing none.
Have substitute motion, Mr. Chair.
No vote on call the question, is there?
We're taking a vote. He's offering substitute.
A substitute motion that this document be presented to us and be done properly. let's be
Point of order, please.
delayed.
Wait a
Point of order.
There, I'm waiting to see if there's a second.
My substitute motion is,
There's a point of order, Chairman.
go ahead.
Beating up the staff.
Just a minute here.
Not
let's
okay.
deal one thing at a time. There was a substitute motion to continue. There was no second. So we're back to the floor. Motion on the floor, which is approval.
Point of order have a precedent?
We started to take a vote before, point of orders to get back on track.
No.
Not to take.
No,
not
call
to
the
take-
question is,
Now,
point of order is
okay,
to,
now you're doing call a question.
no, I called the question, then I said point of order on his sloppy document, sir.
Is there an agreement on call to order?
Move forward, Lloyd.
You're supposed to rule on the point of order.
Let's take a vote on the rule of order.
No, you're supposed to make a decision.
Yes, on point of order.
We need to get back on track, so I'm gonna call, yes, there's point of order. We need to get back on track. So we're back on the original motion.
Mr. Chair, you're supposed
Mr. Appro-
you're supposed to ask her what her point of order is, and then rule on it.
She stayed with her point of order. Let's slow it down a little bit. Ms. Hadcock, what's your point of order?
Harassment of employees up here by George Farabee. Telling somebody there's a sloppy document when they spent many years and many days and many timelines to get that done. And it's the same person you harass every time,
Okay,
every
let's
time.
stick to the subject. The issue.
Well, we need to stop letting them harass the
Let's-
Mr.
employees,
Chair.
please. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. DeSantis.
I comment. If one of the commissioners feels that a document is not prepared correctly, he has the right to say so. It's not harassment to just say, I don't think the document's been prepared correctly. So he's not out of line by asking or by stating that he doesn't feel that the document is prepared correctly.
Now, you said
Now,
it's
he
a little
should,
bit different.
he should point out the deficiencies in the document specifically and ask them to amend or whatever those specific problems that he has with the document. But simply pointing out that a document is not done correctly,
Sloppy.
just whether he puts it that way or not, it's not harassment, Deb. It's just stating
Okay.
stating his opinion, his fact in his mind.
It's the
Ruling-
same
no,
person he
just a
does that
minute.
to.
Just a minute. Now,
All the time.
the ruling is, the point, Mr. DeSantis makes a good point. So your comment of being sloppy was out of order. Right? Do you agree?
I would agree. You don't need to use those.
He went through the details of what he didn't like on it, but to make a comment like
Not
that is
funny.
sloppy.
It's sad.
So
It's sad.
you ruled out of order. So we're back.
To the motion.
You have no
Motion to
respect for
approve.
people, George.
So there's motion to approve. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Disrespect.
Aye.
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 Motion to, or not approve, opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Two noes, Mr. DeSanto and Mr. Farabee. Moving on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. BJ. Item 21, items from chairperson or commission members. Item number A is a resolution to request the state Water Management Board to conduct public hearings in the Pennington County for potential issuance of temporary permanent water use permit by mineral and mining operations. And this was put on by Mrs. Hadcock. Has everybody had a chance to read that resolution? If not, I'd like to have Holly read it for public presentation into public record.
Okay, this is a Pennington County resolution to request the State Water Management Board to conduct public hearings in Pennington County for the potential issuance of any or permanent water use permit by any mineral mining operation. Whereas the Pennington County Board of Commissioners is the legislative and governing body of Pennington County, South Dakota, and has the responsibility to provide for the safety and welfare of all residents of Pennington County. And whereas most residents of Pennington County are provided drinking water through the Rapid Creek watershed, Pactola Lake, and Deerfield Lake. And whereas for Pennington County residents, visitors, and travelers, water quality in our natural drinking water system is essential for safe drinking water, and Rapid City draws raw water from Rapid Creek at the Mountain View and Jackson Municipal Water Stations. And whereas clean drinking water for Pennington County residents, visitors, and travelers is the highest use of water from our Pennington County watersheds, including Rapid Creek, Pactola Lake, and Deerfield Lake. And whereas exploratory operations for mineral mining has occurred in the Black Hills in the proximity to Rapid Creek. And whereas, although mineral rights are property rights and are protected by the U.S. Constitution, the rights of others affected by mineral operations must also be protected. Laws are necessary to regulate mining in order to protect water, air, natural resources, aesthetics, and the welfare of the public. And whereas the Pennington County Board of Commissioners is in the process of developing an ordinance to oversee mineral mining in Pennington County, and whereas water uses in South Dakota require water rights permits. The permits are under the authority of the State Water Management Board, who issues, denies, or cancels water permits, establishes surface and groundwater quality standards, approves groundwater discharge permits, establishes drinking water standards, sets ordinary high water marks, regulates water use, establishes safety of dam standards, validates vested water right claims, issues water quality variances, establishes well construction standards, establishes standards for above and below ground storage tanks and underground injection wells. And now therefore be resolved, the Pennington County Board of Commissioners feels it is critical for the State Water Management Board to conduct public hearings where the people who may be most affected are located prior to the issuance of any temporary or permanent water use permit by any mineral mining operation, which could potentially impact the drinking water supplies. And now therefore it be it further resolved, the Pennington County Board of Commissioners respectfully requests the South Dakota Department of Environment and Natural Resources via the State Water Management Board to conduct public hearings in Rapid City for the potential issuance of any temporary or permanent water use permit by any mineral mining operation which could potentially impact the drinking water supplies in Pennington County, including Rapid Creek, Pactola Lake, Deerfield Lake, and appurtenant watersheds.
Thank you, Ms. Holly. And how this got, for a little background, how this got where it is. First, I want to thank Ms. Holly for all the work that she put into working on the resolution, and Ms. Hadcock for working with the PESLA group leaders for bringing this forward. They requested a meeting, the PESLA leadership group requested a meeting a while back with me, and Ms. Hadcock joined in, but she'd been working with them before to discuss this resolution. So this isn't what they presented to us. But Ms. Holly did a lot of work on it and got it to where it is today, and I think it's acceptable. And so that's what we have today. And Ms. Holly, you sent that out to their attorney, and we haven't heard.
We have.
We heard back? Okay.
Chairman.
But we do have, before we go to the board, we have a couple people that want to speak from the public. Let's take public comment first. Or would you like to
I'd like to speak first, and then that way we have a little
recognize Ms.
background.
Hadcock?
This resolution came, Mr. Buskirk had said something about water protection and that he was in disagreement with the resolution, so I had talked to him beforehand. Then I talked to the Mark Van Norman from Pace Law. I also had talked to some of the neighbors and some of the mining group that believed our drinking water was very safe, and if we could bring a resolution forward saying that this board believed what they believed, that it would be a positive for Pennington County. So that's the background on where this came from. It wasn't just Pace Law and just wasn't the native ladies that I was working with. It was our community in a whole. So thank you.
Okay. We did have a request for a couple speakers. Jennifer Bear Eagle, I should be asking, do you want to speak? I got a notice from some. Just please identify yourself for the record.
Hi, my My name's Jolene Montelo Abares, and I am a resident of Pennington County. I am also a citizen of the Oglala Nation. I've lived in Rapid City for several years. I am the mother of 3 young men, young boys, and when it comes to the environment, it's very concerning to me as a citizen of Pennington County, as a mother, and as a Native American woman who believes we know the Black Hills are sacred to us. Water's sacred to us. It's life. And so I'm here today to say that and to support this resolution. I think we tend to forget that natural resources, when we risk them with mining, all the money in the world can't fix something like that. And I don't know if our water's bad, what are people in drink? We can't drink money. And I think that's something we always need to keep first and forward in our mind, is that mining in the Black Hills has proved to be bad in the past, and I don't see it being any better now. I think just from the Home State Gold Mine, it really polluted a lot of the water, bodies of water in Black Hills. All the chemicals, cyanide, arsenic, heavy metals that were a product of the mining, are still affecting people today. They're affecting our environment. So I just wanted to come here today and say that I'm in support of this resolution. Thank you
Thanks,
for your
Jolene.
time.
Thank you.
You in agreement, or would you like, Jennifer?
Yes. Good morning. My name is Jennifer Bear Eagle from the Oglala Sioux tribe, and I'm here to speak in support of this resolution. To the Lakota people, the Black Hills are sacred, and water is sacred, and there are maybe around 20,000 or so Lakota people who reside in Rapid City in the Black Hills area. And, the ecological integrity of the Black Hills are important to the Lakota because the Black Hills are sacred. And so naturally, clean, safe drinking water is essential to everybody who lives in Rapid City and in the Black Hills, and as well as all those people who visit the Black Hills and Rapid City. Rapid City and the Black Hills receive up to somewhere around 2.5 million visitors annually, and tourism is among the top industries in the region. And we think that everyone in Rapid City and visitors should be concerned about water quality. Open pit mining may well impact the water quality and the beautiful vistas in the Black Hills. Right now, the Black Hills area is comparable to the Rocky Mountain area in terms of the pristine nature of our drinking water. However, in the past, we have seen that gold mining using cyanide leaching turn Whitewood Creek into a Superfund site and pollute the waters all the way down the Belle Fourche River, Cheyenne River, Missouri River. So clearly, there should be a hearing by the State Water Management Board to protect Rapid City and Black Hills residents and visitors and our drinking water before any further water permitting is done along Rapid Creek and above Pactola Lake or Deerfield Lake. And so that's why we support this resolution for the State Water Management Board to hold hearings in Rapid City before permitting our water to potentially dangerous activities. So overall, we're in support of this resolution, in support of keeping our drinking water pure. And I want to thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak today.
Thanks, Jolene.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? It looks like we got Mr. Vargo. How you doing, Mr. Vargo?
3 minutes.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Mark Fargo, Pennington County State's Attorney. I was also involved with some of the folks that had concerns about some of the mining that we've had, the exploratory mining that's been permitted already and that had a water permit. I worked with those folks to see if they could get to peer and actually voice their concerns there. But I think that this is all about the process. And the more that we can make this process transparent, make it accessible to the people, to be able to voice to the water board what they feel, to be able to hear what the other side is saying, I think it is a much better process than the one that we've been looking at thus far. I would urge you to support this, not because necessarily the commission has control over the water board. Obviously, you're making a request here. You're not demanding, you can't demand. We're subordinate political entity. But I do think that it's important that they understand that it's not just individuals, but actually the county as a whole and the commission as a whole that believes that this would be a more appropriate process for us to undergo so that people can be heard. There are definitely things that that might come to light that would also then allow this board to speak more effectively after the fact. So if you're present at those hearings, then the board might have a fully informed decision. And again, you might be in the position of just making a request, but your request would be based on the facts and the evidence that was presented, and it would enable you to be much more meaningfully involved, and it would enable citizens of Pennington County and the surrounding counties and tribal nations to be more meaningfully involved. So I would urge you to support it and to see if we can start that process.
Thank you, Mr. Vargo.
Thanks, Mark.
Further discussion? Mr. Busker,
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution.
Second.
moved by Busker, seconded by DeSanto to move the resolution.
Mr. Chair.
Mr.
When I ran for election 4 years ago, the Journal asked me what were my major concerns about the future, and my number one topic was preservation of water quality. I also have opposed the further construction of South Rochford Road to maintain the Black Hills as the Black Hills and not. That's enough of that. Anyway, I urge, and I'm sure we will approve this resolution.
Thank you. Mr. Busker, any further comment?
Mr.
Mr. Farabee?
Did I just hear reversal on paving South Orchard Road?
No.
What's that?
Oh, he's talking off
Did I
subject.
just hear a reversal?
Keep going, Chair.
No, any further discussion?
Stay on topic.
Seeing none, all in favor of the resolution indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Holly.
Yep. We're gonna move on here.
21A, 21B. You're okay.
Item B, request for amendment to the Pennington County Campus Petition Circulator Code of Conduct specifically for the allowed location outside the county administration building, and this was placed on the agenda by Commissioner Hadcock. I'll turn this over to Ms. Hadcock.
Once looking into this, I had gave my paper to Ms. Tonchi and didn't know we changed locations. I was gone the first time this was read, and the second time I gave my paper away, and when I looked at it, it looked like the same location. I'm still in the belief that coming inside the building, people can warm up and still go back outside. But I believe, and after looking at some of the things that were on the list for lawsuits that were against us, we didn't have any on the stairs, as far as I know, at least when I read in the paper, and it goes back all the way to 2006. So I had constituents and other people that were coming up and saying, Deb, please let us go on the stairs. And at the time, I did not know we were switching it. I thought it was the same ordinance except for going inside. So my amendment would be to move to amend the previous adopted motion on April 3rd, 2018 for the Pennington County Petition Circulator Code of Conduct to specifically change the language of the area allowed outside the administration to be the elevated entrance area outside the main doors past the covered awning. That would be the motion if we wanted to move forward on that.
Let's take some discussion because a motion should be made before making comment. Is there any more discussion on the board? Mr. DeSanto.
I would like to basically mirror what Deb's saying. I also, after talking to Tonchi and a few other people, agree that they should be allowed up on top there. However, I'm going to vote for this amendment, but I still feel that they should be allowed, as I mentioned last time, inside the building as well. But so just to be on record about that.
Okay. I'm gonna, Ms. Hadcock, do you want to make your motion now?
That would be the motion I read. Kara, did you get that?
Yep.
Yes.
Just got it.
Second.
And seconded by Busker. Further discussion? I'll make one comment. I guess I agree with the staff. I think it's not that we're trying to limit or eliminate any of the petitions. You know, when this was brought forward, staff got together and they looked at all the situation as a whole. And so when you start talking, my concern is when you start getting, you know, lately we've had one or two people, which is no big deal. They're up there on the steps. It's not, there's no problem. But what happens if we get three? Then we could end up into some disagreements, who gets to stand where and who gets to go where. I think it's just being consistent by having it on the bottom platform and so forth. To me, it's really not that big a deal. I mean, really, we don't have petition police out there telling you can't go here, can't do that if they're up on the stairs or not. But just for the simple fact, I think of being consistent, I'll probably be the one lone vote for no, but it's in support of what the staff, what recommendations that came back.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. DeSanto.
One more comment that I went on record last time we talked about this, and I'm gonna go on record again. It's not our local petitioners that are a problem, ever. I've never experienced our local petitioners being an issue. And so for those that decide that they want to come here and petition, paid without a state money, respect our rules when you come here, and be polite just like our local petitioners do, or don't come.
Good point. Any further discussion? All in favor of the
I would,
hold on. Did you,
I would certainly echo that, and I think there's people in the audience want to talk before we vote.
okay,
But I'd certainly echo what Commissioner DeSanto said,
okay,
and also echo that, once again, like I said last time, if the folks that bring whatever, and the folks want to refer it, and those folks are devious, or whatever bad words you want to say, and bring something in the middle of winter, then the right to petition is basically nullified. So I am a firm believer we ought to let the folks inside during the winter months.
thank you. Ms. Holly, did you have something?
I just wanted to ask the board if they would possibly consider adding both areas to the policy. And I'm just strictly thinking about what we went through last year when we had multiple petitioners going on. And Commissioner DeSanto, you hit the nail on the head right there. It was the Marcy's Law, the medical marijuana. We had, I think at one point, maybe 3 or 4 petitioners going on, and they had multiple people that were there, and so it just got to be a jumbled mess where they were talking over each other, and one was mad at the other because he was taking his space, and when we were trying to have a chair out there for an elderly or disabled individual to sit down, that area was just not enough. And people fall down those stairs. We felt it was a safety issue, and that's why we initially thought to add it to move them down. But, staff is fine if the board wants to have them back at the top of the stairs. It just might be, instead of us having to come back to you, if we had both areas to be able to spread out the petitioners, if we had a situation where we had multiples again. I don't know if that'll come up. That was a struggle that we had before. So it's completely up to the board. I just thought I would throw that out there if you guys are comfortable adding both areas.
Holly made a good point. So, motion maker, are you okay with that?
Yes.
Seconders?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yes.
Ron's okay with that, to add both those areas.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Farabee?
I wouldn't have any opposition to changing our policy to make it only local referendums. Statewide would have to get special permission. And that would avoid the issue that we're talking about, Marcy's Law. And the payday loan was the one that I remember most.
That was the other one going on at
And
the
those,
same
they
time.
were fighting,
Yes, sir.
and they should have just been kicked off the property.
No, I think that gets into some slippery areas.
I do
on-
too. I think you're gonna
Okay.
get lawsuits.
But
So-
that's limited to local referendums.
Motion on the floor. She was okay with the friendly amendment, so was the seconder. include the top and the bottom as the place. And I would suggest moving the garbage in.
And look at that, yes, sir.
It takes up right in the middle of that whole area. Further discussion, we've got some people in the public that would like to speak.
Yes, thank you for this agenda item. Tanchi Weaver again. I remembered this time. I would like to interject, please don't move the garbage can, that is my desk. So,
We're definitely moving it, Tanji. That means you got more room.
well, I'm glad you looked into the lawsuits because I did some looking into lawsuits too. And what I found is rather quite interesting and supportive of your affirmative vote on this one. In the state of California, they have a Bill of Rights as well, just like we do. And it is very strong, like ours, for the right to petition. And based on that right and that freedom in their state constitution, which I say mirrors ours, there were two suits. One was Prune Yard Shopping Center versus Robbins and Fashion Valley Mall versus National Labor Relations Board. Both of those, Prune Yard was first and Fashion Valley was second, but they both upheld in the state Supreme Court that petitioners are allowed to petition even on private property because the public is welcome. And there is no right to petition if you don't have a place to sign a petition. So on the strength of that, of course, this is not private property, but it is property owned by the public. And I really think that it's one of our most important rights. We don't have a right if we don't have a place to exercise it. And making the people with the petitions accessible to people, especially handicapped people, if they were relegated to that area near the flagpoles, it really is hard it's not impossible maybe, depending on how badly handicapped a person is, but it is hard for people to get from the handicap parking, which is clear over on the northeast corner of the parking lot, and the access runs parallel to the building. They would have to find a way to get over there to the bottom of those stairs by the flagpole. So having us on the platform above, I've been on that platform with a lot of other petition carriers. And we usually can reach détente, if you'll pardon the expression. We usually reach an agreement where we actually even help each other. Because they'll say, well, is your petition the same? And they'll say, well, if you're signing this one, maybe you're in the same jurisdiction as this person. And, so we do try to help each other. And so with that in mind, I would appreciate your affirmative vote on the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanchi. I'd like to remind you that this is for approval.
Florence Thompson. I'd just like to say same thing, basically, that this is a good idea. It's going to give more people access, and we need to remember that it isn't the petitioners, it isn't the petition carriers that should be the priority here. The petitioners are the people, and people are very reluctant to take off their mittens, if it's really cold outside and the wind's blowing and the petitions are blowing around. They are not going to sign petitions on days like that. So they're just going to rush past you. And I've done a lot of petitions, and on a cold day, if you don't have a place to get inside and get out of the wind and to do that business, it doesn't happen because they won't stop. And they will, if they have, we wait until people go inside and do whatever they've come to do in their business in the building, and then on the way out to catch them. And so we need to be able to be inside the building as well. But thank you very much for expanding this.
So the motion on the floor is to approve the proposed location amendment to the Code of Conduct. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same side. Motion passes unanimously. Holly changed my vote. Thank you, Holly.
Commissioners, can I respectfully request you readdress item 16, please? And this is not to change the vote that was previously done. Ted just contacted me, and there is some information that the guard just conveyed that changes the deadline, that this has to be addressed one way or the other by the 27th, which does not work for that May 1st commission meeting. So he would like to request the board possibly schedule a special meeting next week and set up the tours immediately for any commissioners that want to participate, even as early as this afternoon. So we're just requesting a special meeting.
You're requesting a special meeting, or there could be
Reconsideration.
a reconsideration by one of the,
We don't want to reconsider.
you don't want to reconsider?
Because the tie vote in statute just goes to, shall defers the decision to the next meeting of the board. So if you schedule a special one, that still is in compliance with statute.
If someone reconsiders and it's a 3-1,
Well, that might be a more complicated way to do it, but
okay.
just asking for a special meeting that neither, anybody has to change their vote from today.
Okay.
We just need a special meeting to dispose of the item one way or the other and get the tour scheduled
I guess
immediately.
my question is, yeah, we could schedule a special meeting, give those commissioners that time to do that, or our quick spot would be the reconsideration if they wanted one, but that has to come from,
The other side.
and I don't think could you help me out with that?
Well, interestingly enough, typically a reconsideration is somebody on the prevailing side. There is no one. There is no
No.
prevailing side in this case, so I guess it can come from anybody.
Mr. Chair, we're meeting tomorrow and Wednesday and Thursday, right? I mean, Wednesday and Thursday and Friday, and any reason we can't tack this on to
We'd have to
like
give a day's
Friday's
notice.
agenda?
I can re-amend that equalization hearing agenda, or just create a
From my
new one.
understanding, Thursday, we could have some spare time.
Friday, you're done
Friday.
at noon, so we could possibly get you after that, if George and Mark or
Okay.
whoever's available to do the tour
Friday's
between now
fine,
and
yeah.
then.
Okay,
You want to go this afternoon?
okay, so it sounds like,
Sure.
what
If
you guys
they-
gotta sign up for the tour too.
Yeah.
He's going. I'm not going.
You're
I
not
already know.
going, so
I've seen
George,
it.
it's you.
Oh, he's the only one that needs to see it.
Yep, you're the only one that needs, Friday enough time?
Yeah.
Okay, I need a motion to have a special meeting on Friday, say what? 1 o'clock,
Just say after the last equalization hearing.
after the last equalization meeting.
Move to have a special meeting of the Board of Commissioners after the equalization meeting on Friday.
There's been a motion,
Second.
seconded by Hadcock. And any further discussion? Seeing none, looks like all in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Looks like we'll have a special meeting Friday and have him contact Mr. Farabee to get his tour of the facility scheduled before then, I suppose.
George, do you want to set a time for this afternoon?
Okay.
You in town?
Yeah, we might be another 2 hours. I don't know. I can just leave, I guess. I'll get with Ted.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Holly. Committee reports. Is there anybody that needs to report on their committees?
Not me.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. DeSanto.
the Extension Board is going to be coming before us asking for money for a defibrillator, automatic defibrillator in the ID audit. The Extension Office. So I would recommend that we approve that. We've been sitting around without one for a long time, and in any public building that's used as often as that one is, we definitely need an AID out there.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussions, reports? Ms.
do.
Hadcock.
Yes, the Fair Board, we're going on the retreat to brainstorm. I know Mark has done that before, and it actually is a really good retreat for figuring out what's next for the fairgrounds and talking about more events and different things. So went to the fair board. The chamber is, there's a few people that came and reported that were helping do the get out the vote with the mayor, and the mayor did his presentation. And they had a really good Elevate Rapid City at the Black Hills Energy Building. They had like 700 people there. It was pretty amazing. It was one of their biggest events. And then the fire board, we went out to Interior. That was my second time, and I can tell you, they serve really good food, Cliff and those guys out there. So good information on the fire board. They might be having a, what do you call it? Where we all get to speak if you're candidates and states, like a candidate forum, just to see who supports the fire board and tell what they're about and kind of get people to know that are running for office about the fire, volunteer fire department and all the amazing things they do. So really good boards last month.
Thank you, Ms. Hadcock. Nothing spectacular to report from me. We had the Health and Human Service Board meeting, the Ellsworth Task Force task meeting attended. The Elevate Rapid City I attended, which was, as Ms. Hadcock said, was very good and big turnout for that. And it is a really neat building, and there's some good momentum going on there with and teamwork. I mean, as far as collaborations between business owners and the community. I know I've I attended some more, but don't really have anything else to report that's going to be of any importance. So nobody else has got any more. Mr. Fairby.
I went to the senior citizen or whatever it's called meeting and I got a comment or two, in fact, almost unanimous, that they'd like Commissioner Buskerud back.
Second. Did I say that?
Probably more their age.
They allowed that I wasn't too junior.
All right. Okay, now we're done with the committee reports. I have got a question for this board. Now we come up to approve vouchers. Me and Mark attended the Pierre County commission training, and our vouchers for travel are on there, both of ours. So I probably need a motion to approve the vouchers as they are, minus Lloyd and Mark.
Guess so.
You know,
I
Mr.
mean,
Chairman, I think that's a good question, but, you know, I think every voucher cycle, one of us probably has a bill on there, or and if nothing else, we approve the payrolls and we all get paid. So I don't think that's a problem, frankly, but you can do what you want.
I just wanted to bring it to attention because perceptions, you know, one thing, if it's not good for one, then it's not good for the other, right? You know what I'm saying? So
Well, the last time we had vouchers, when we had per diems, nobody abstained either, so it's all good, and I don't do per diems. So.
I don't have a problem with it. I mean, I just wanted to bring it to attention. So if consensus I get from this commission is it's okay. You okay?
Good transparency,
All right.
Lloyd.
There we go.
I better look and see how much you're getting.
20160. So, okay, so I'd look for a motion for the vouchers.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by DeSanto, seconded by Buskerud. Any further any discussion?
So I'll be voting no again. I see you got DeSanto here and LaCroix, and but there's others that I'll be voting no.
Okay. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
One no vote for Mr. Farabee. Next, we have items from the public. Sam, you're next. Seeing none? Seeing none, looks like we're gonna go into executive session. I need a motion to do executive session SDL 1-25-21 for the purpose of considering personnel issues. This SDCL 1-2523 to consider contractual matters.
Move to go into an executive session in 5 minutes.
In 5 minutes. So there's been a motion in 5 minutes.
I can make bingo if you guys hurry.
Is there a
Just
second?
kidding.
Is that a second, Ms. Hadcock?
Yeah.
Seconded by Hadcock to go into executive session in 5 minutes. All in favor indicate aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Motion to come out of executive session?
Second?
Motion by Hadcock, seconded by DeSanto to come out of executive session. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. First item, we'll recognize Jay Alderman.
I'd like the commission to entertain, excuse me, the following motion. Move that Pennington County will not exercise its first right of refusal to match the current offer received by owner March 12, 2018, for the purchase of lots 17 through 32 of Block 108 in Rapid City, and that Pennington County reserves its first right of refusal on any new offers to purchase this same property or any other property in Block 108.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by DeSanto, seconded by Hadcock. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'd like to make a motion that we offer a contract is it, I suppose?
Offer?
Not a contract?
Not for department.
It's a position. Of Buildings and Grounds Director to Mike Cool, a grade 24, step 20.
Motion
Effective July 1st.
Second.
Motion made by Busker, seconded by Hadcock.
Okay, what you wanted? Okay.
Madam
Discussion?
Hadcock, to you, sir. Just kidding.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
Motion to adjourn?
Moved to be adjourned by Hadcock, seconded by
Leave them
Busker,
there and I will pick them up.
Mark?
seconded by Mark. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. We're adjourned.